Whether you're just starting out in your career or an experienced professional, you just know having that UN experience on your resume will help it either pad it up or will help you get acquainted with the UN system, or it will just help you transition from your current role into the UN system. So here's my UN internship guide with 7 things that you must know before you jump onto that application portal and just fire off hundreds of applications without even knowing how to navigate your way across the UN system, and essential tips and tricks that you must know before you start applying. Tip number 1, research, research, research. Understand that there are so many UN agencies out there who specialize in various kinds of work across the globe. Understanding what each of them does is really key and vital. As an example, if you're studying to be a nutrition specialist, or if you're studying within that nutrition space, a UN agency like the World Food Program might be a better fit. But if you're fresh out of school with a degree in philosophy, would applying to an agency like the World Bank be a better fit? Not so much. Tip number 2, alignment. Once you've understood what each UN entity does, it is vital that you understand and align your field of interest with the agency's mission and values and the work that they do. If you specialize in the field of supply chain and logistics, then it might be worthwhile in terms of engaging with agencies who work heavily on the ground, such as FAO, WFP, IFAD, UNHCR, UNDP. They will also help you better prepare your applications as you put all of your affairs in order. Tip number 3, application. Your application should not be just your resume, but it should accurately reflect and depict all of your preceding experience. It should be chock full of supporting documents and help the interviewer understand and connect the dots in terms of what you as a candidate stand for, what your preceding experience has been, and how bringing you on board will help advance the agency's mission and the kind of work that they do. And this is not just true for the agency itself, but also for the department that is interviewing you. Tip number 4, understanding the global trends. When preparing for an interview, staying on top of global trends and affairs will help you make a mark. If you can accurately connect a global trending topic with how it will impact the work of the agency that you're interviewing with or in conversations with, it will definitely help you stand out as a candidate. As an example, speaking about how the conflict in Sudan impacts the operations of agencies like the World Food Program, FAO, or UNHCR in the region, or perhaps how the UN Women as an agency helps delivering programs and policies and standards that uphold women's rights. Tip number 5, know the scope of work that is being advertised. UN agencies oftentimes will hire for a very, very specific scope of work that will be clearly outlined in the job application. Clearly, will there be a bait and switch scenario when it comes to organizations like the UN? Candidates who check off all the boxes, and I do really mean all the boxes, will often be the ones who will be carried forward in the interview. Do not apply for a role just because you feel you will be able to check off a box or 2. There are real lives at stake and real lives that get impacted by each and every decision that the UN entity makes. As a result, the UN tries to align the skills and the job opening to the highest degree possible. Tip number 6, know your contract type. There are always different types of contracts that the UN hires for different amount and different number of roles across the globe. These can range from 3 months all the way up to 1 year and few years if we are talking about permanency within the contract type. Shorter contracts are usually for interns and new hires who are being onboarded and who are just getting to know the UN system, whereas longer term contracts are usually for consultants and professional category staffs who are perhaps known as P1, P2, and so on and so forth, all the way up to P6 level and the country director level. You really want to understand the type of contract and the duration of your contract, because you don't want to start a job and then be known that you will only be doing that job, or you're only in for the job for the duration of 3 months while you fill in for somebody else who's on a leave for various reasons. Tip number 7, competition. When you apply for a UN role, you're not just applying for any other role at any other organization. In terms of the competition, you're not just going up against internally or externally qualified candidates. You're also going up against people who have been in the UN system for decades and know it inside out. In my opinion, it's always better to start out with a junior level position, even if you feel that you might be overqualified for that role, just so that you can get your foot into the UN system. Once you're into the system, you can perhaps make a lateral or vertical move depending on your experience, your relationship type with your managers and your team, and perhaps into a role that you feel is better suited to your skills, strengths, and abilities. Here's a few bonus tips. Bonus tip number 1. Educational experience. Different job grades and job types often call for varying levels of education. But the harsh truth is that having a master's degree will definitely help you stand out and give you a professional advantage when it comes to applying for the UN roles. After all, the name master's itself speaks to your professional capabilities when it comes to applying for jobs that are in alignment with your field and experience. If you have working experience on top of having a master's degree, then that's a definite bonus as well for the hiring managers and the hiring committee. However, in other cases, the hiring manager might just be happy with your other educational qualifications. However, they might have you write a competency-based exam or provide you with some sort of a assignment that you have to complete in order to accurately demonstrate that you are able and capable of doing the job. Bonus tip number 2, salaries. Not many people know, but a majority of the UN system salaries are tax-free, assuming that your country or the country that you will be working in has an agreement with the UN in place, which most countries do. The salaries are usually set in terms of the bands that a role is being hired into. So it's really crucial that you ask your hiring manager or the hiring committee about the salary band for the role that is being advertised. Generally, the salary band will be in US dollars, but as I mentioned, it's always better to check and ask. Bonus tip number 3, there's more than one way of getting into the UN system. You can either start out as a UN volunteer and work your way up from there. You can also partner with non-governmental entities that the UN regularly partners with and works with in the field or within the country offices or the regional bureaus, and perhaps network your way around there and work your way up into the UN system. You can, as I mentioned, you can also always start with a UN internship or a much more junior position. And those were all the tips I had. Hopefully some of them will help you as you prepare your application for a UN internship or a UN role. Comment down below if there are other topics that you want me to make a video about. And as usual, thank you so much for supporting the channel.